My name is Elisabeth Repp, and I am here today with Obot Witherspoon, who is the Executive Director of the Children's Environmental Health Network, and I am a Program Associate with the network. Today, we are going to be having a little fireside chat with one of our award recipients for the Child Health Community Advocate Award, Jackie Patterson. Just to give a quick highlight of the inspiring work that Jackie has been a part of. She is the founder and executive director of the Chisholm Legacy Project, a resource hub for Black frontline climate justice leadership. And the mission overall of the project is rooted in the Just Transition Framework, serving as a vehicle to connect Black communities on the front lines of climate justice with the resources to actualize those visions. And prior to the launch of the Chisholm Legacy Project, she also served as the senior director of the NAACP Environmental and Climate Justice Program for over a decade. And also in March of 2024, Patterson was honored to be named as one of Time Magazine's Women of the Year, as well as receiving the Time Magazine Earth Award. Thank you so much for being here, Jackie.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie and Jackie. So we thought we'd start with just a softball. They should all be free, but during these times, everyone's feeling a bit of anxiety, uncertainty, a lot of angst, that kind of thing. What kind of music do you turn to just help bring you into a space of joy, maybe clarity? I know you do a lot of writing. What's some of the music and or artists that you tend to turn to often?
Thank you. It's a good question. So yeah, so I find myself taking a lot of road trips, and so I'm always kind of got my Spotify list going, and some of the artists that are on there, some old school, a lot of reggae for sure, reggae across the ages and including Bob Marley and others, and also some oldies like Tracy Chapman, and so that kind of thing, and then there's some kind of songs like. I forget who sings that about. I've got a feeling tonight's gonna be a good night. I'll
Yes.
sing that to get myself going. And of course, Prince always gets me going. I can sing every single word of most of his songs. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Have you been to Minneapolis
I
to
have been to
visit?
many,
Have you?
but I haven't been like inside, like on a tour of no.
Okay.
I'd love to do that.
I would love a copy of that playlist at some point. That sounds
Oh
amazing.
yeah, it's fun. It definitely gets me going.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Love that. You got to stay upbeat, especially, and keep motivated. So music is a great way to do that. Thanks so much for sharing.
Sure.
Our next question is if you could please share with us maybe how you first began to appreciate the ways in which we interact with the environment, kind of if there was any type of moment that you can remember.
Thank you. Yeah, I think my earliest memories of truly interacting with the environment was when I was a kid going to my dad was Jamaican, so we would go to Jamaica. My earliest time going to Jamaica was when I was 2 years old. And so just going there and remember just getting up early in the morning and walking down to the beach and just being in the water. And then also back at home, my dad was very much into the environment himself and just spending time outdoors. So we spent a lot of time, and we would go to national parks and walk in national parks or just to the park. So those are some of my early appreciations of the environment.
That's awesome, Jackie. And the fact that you still remember memories from about toddler age is very impressive.
Yes.
I think the average person is like 4 or 5 and up, but maybe we suppress them. I don't know.
That might be.
Well, those are such positive memories, and I know how much Jamaica holds love in your heart, and I know how much the water
Yeah.
holds love in your heart. You and I have spent a good amount of time swimming and thinking in spaces that had water surrounding us, so I can see how that has been a lifelong connection. Thank you for that. Well, you have a breadth of background, multiple masters, social work, public health. You've done research. You've been part of public health policy making and advocacy, and that's just up to this point, and it continues. And here you are in these different spaces, also helping on so many frontline communities, movement building and systems approach, and breaking down these silos and these systems that quite frankly have not been working for most of us for the length of our time. With all that energy, money, attention, capacity, many organizations, right, with so many wonderful missions working so hard day to day, what do you think are some of our biggest barriers to progress that in the tail end of 2025, we are still dealing with so many fundamental challenges, even though we know better?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say that one of our biggest impediments to progress would be our lack of, let's see, like our lack of ability to define a pathway where people can see themselves still thriving with the shifts that we need to make. So our inability to articulate like this is how it can go. Like if we do these things, it can go like I always kind of quote this person who I was at a meeting, I think it was in Alaska. Anyway, and this guy was saying that it was like this, he said that we don't have to take cold showers and drink warm beer. Like I think that there is like this perception that we can't thrive and be happy with the shifts that we need to make in order to have a resilient planet, that they're living in harmony with biomimicry and with the regenerative systems of our natural ecosystem doesn't mean that we have to suffer and have deprivation. There's still abundance. That's the whole nature of regeneration, but it's how we do it. And so I think that the folks who have the mic are either articulating it in a way that just is not in no way compelling, and then the people who or the people other people who have the mic are very invested, rooted in greed, in telling a false narrative that takes us away from, yeah, the direction we need to go in. That's putting it, simply, but I could go on and
No, no,
on.
very, very well said. And for all of our listeners, I hope you're listening deeply. There's a lot there that Jackie just shared in wisdom, just because, especially for our younger people in particular, because it has to be so hard to be a teenager, a young 20-some-year-old trying to navigate and figure out what even the next couple of years look like. Nonetheless, your professional passions and things like that, there will be these ebbs and flows. And just because maybe the loudest people with the mics, as Jackie just said, are maybe look like they're commanding the floor, I can just tell you that there has never been a ballot that I'm aware of that's had clean water, air that doesn't make us sick, built environments that don't make us sick. So it's hard to know that sometimes through all the chatter. But I guess if anything, among many things that you are going to hear today, please do remember that there's a lot of us out here still working, still grinding, still trying to do what we can to keep the forefront of community and community needs at the forefront, not greed and all the other indicators. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you so much for that wisdom. I just think, especially in times like this, it's so important to have that positivity and like the vision to strive for something like that, to be able to maintain that motivation. So, yeah, really appreciate you sharing that. And kind of along the same lines, we were hoping you could maybe talk about some key pieces of advice that you have for the next generation leaders in public health and environmental justice.
Thank you. The first thing I would say is, just that kind of adage, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I would say that don't make work your vacation like your vocation a necessary evil. Like there are so many ways that one can engage around environmental and climate justice that and that people need to find what speaks to their heart and to their soul. and that also there's not to stay kind of deep in one's purpose and principle and not to feel the need to compromise. I think it's something that I would definitely implore people to keep in mind, and to just and that when one does what they love, they're better at it. So it's not only just kind of a pleasure principle, but it also is a way of making it better for all of us. So, we all need to be doing what we love to have a more, yeah, to get us where we need to go. And then also to keep in mind intersectionality. So when one is doing, like, not like whatever one chooses to do in terms of vocation, always kind of keep in mind how it intersects with other things. Like, for example, when I was speaking to a group of solar installers, I was talking with them about really the work that they're doing is work that's making our health better, making our environment better, making all these things better. And one person came up to me in tears, and they said they never thought of their job that way. They never thought of that level of purpose in what they were doing, and that it gave them a whole other kind of outlook over on their purpose and their work. And so thinking about how what each and every one of us does contributes to the whole, I think is something I would remind people to do as well. So those are some things I would think of.
That's awesome, Jackie. There you were, yet activating a whole new segment of champions, unbeknownst to them.
Yes.
And all it takes is a conversation, right? And I love that. I love that. And wow, let's make that the narrative versus, the opposite.
Right.
That somehow solar and wind are not the future.
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Thank
Well,
you.
Jackie, I see you and always have seen you as a very humble person.
Mhm.
And yet you show up all the time in your first and foremost, in your full, all awesomeness for so many. If we were to ask you what you are most proud of, what would that be?
Mm. It's a good question. Um, like it's interesting because I talk about kind of all the different things that I've done over my life, all the jobs, all the places, all the da, 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 and that I feel the most deep in my purpose now than I've ever had. And it really is following the legacy of Shirley Chisholm, who said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. And I feel just so gratified by working with communities who historically have not had a seat at the table. And so each community that we work with, who, when our organizers appear in the community, they say to our organizers, "How did you find us?" Literally, they feel like they're so unseen, so invisibilized, so kind of bereft by society. And so to be able to be a bridge to and with those communities, not only for their sake, but for the sake of us all, because now they are a part of an inclusive democracy, that it takes all of us to get us to where we need to go. So that work, it feels like God's work for me. And I'm, definitely a person of faith. And yeah, it gets me up every morning feeling like I'm blessed to do it. So this is definitely the work that I take the most honor in being able to do, for sure.
Amazing. Inclusive democracy. I love
Mhm.
that. And I remember, Jackie, when you were not contemplating, but definitely moving forward with your vision for
Yeah.
Chisholm. And
Yeah.
here you are,
Yes.
solid. I know it is not easy. The dynamics of all the above, running a nonprofit, keeping
Mhm.
up with, like you said, the unseen, and giving them a light and a pathway. Well, we see you, Jackie, and we see Chisholm, and we're all very, very honored and grateful to have the mission of the work happening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
So, moving forward a little bit, but these times have been challenging for a lot of us. There's a lot being rolled back in terms of environmental and public health protections. And so, kind of in the face of all of that uncertainty, we were wondering if you could maybe speak to some of the successes that you've observed in the environmental and equity space, particularly around children's environmental health.
Thank you. Yes. So one success that I would like to call out is it the Juliana case? Is that what it's called? Yeah. So the children and youth actually being in leadership and being supported, of course, by adult allies, but to be able to speak on their own behalf, to be able to utilize the legal system, which, like you said, in these times is kind of one of the only things we have left at this point in terms of true levers. And so for them to be able to use this lever of change to actually prevail, that is one of the more inspiring things that I've seen for sure. Also, just like I one of my things I like to do when when I need a background thing while I'm doing whatever I'm doing on my laptop. Like I will watch like there's a Ndlovu Children's Choir from South Africa. And every time I see one of these, youth who are doing culture work, performance work, and that kind of thing, I'm always in tears, like every single time. And then when they tell their stories afterwards, and one of those children's choirs was from South Africa. They talked about having to walk and carry water to from wherever they need. And you think about you think about how they're having to walk so much farther to get water now with the droughts from climate change and so forth. But then now kids are being able to be on a national stage to tell their story and to galvanize people into action. So that is very inspiring. And I'll just end with another example of the sister Kathy from the Cataract Islands, I think, who wrote that poem "Dear Matafele Painum" to her little boy. And just like that, like it was not only her words, but that image of this little boy, that was definitely that combination that it took to actually change the hearts and minds of folks and galvanize people to greater action. Because there's nothing more compelling. I was just on a plane with a little he must have been around 9 months old, and to me, just like all of like every last little utterance, all his little, it was like a joy for the entire 3 hours. Just like being next to him. Like there's nothing more universally compelling than a baby's laugh and a baby's and so even at that age, like her telling that poem, that video, it's it's a, what do you call it, it universalizes this call to protection, this call to action, this call to consciousness. And so those are a few examples that I would give of, yeah.
Those are great examples. Thank you, Jackie. And for those that just aren't familiar, the Juliana versus United States case was filed in 2015, and it was unfortunately dismissed in 2020. But it was a climate-related lawsuit brought by 21 youth plaintiffs against the United States and several executive branch officials, pretty much saying it is not okay that we and the next generation and generations after us are supposed to take the burden, absorb the burden of what we are not actively doing here to try to combat, reduce the severity and the crisis of climate change. So very inspiring.
Yeah, and that last example I also gave of the Dear Matafele Pinum and this person, it was at the UN climate talks. It was what was really kind of got everyone to agree. So for folks who might not have that background, to get everybody to agree to, I think that was it in Paris with the Paris Agreement? Yeah. To the got folks to really take a more aggressive and ambitious commitments around around climate change. And she
Yeah.
literally read that poem and performed that poem on the floor of the United Nations there at the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of Parties. Number
Yes.
21. Yeah.
And thank you for bringing that global perspective. We all know These issues do not stop or end at the US border. In fact, we have huge influence, positively or negatively, across the world in what we do or do not do. And it continues to be extremely inspiring to see our youth leaders continuing to show us there is a better way. So our final question is that this year, CEHN hosted a series of advocacy trainings. We used to do these in person, and so we tried these virtually this time, and they seem to be very successful, just trying to continue to build cadres of child health champions. So regardless of their discipline, regardless of their age, whatever, if you're interested in serving as a champion for children in the work that you do, come join us, right? And so we don't want to leave it there. We want to make sure that we're following these folks, supporting them, providing technical assistance. But from where you sit, where do you think is what are some of the most important things that people can do to inspire change? So whether it's these new trainees or anyone listening who's trying to inspire change and equity, speaking their truth under these harsh times, but really leaning on this, what should be nonpartisan issue of protecting children and the vulnerable in the communities that they live in and serve.
Thank you. I think to the extent that we can engage around storytelling and ensure that there's a platform for folks to tell their stories. I think about when I was at the Disaster Recovery Center after Hurricane Katrina, and everyone was there, who had been evacuated from Louisiana, and this was in Texas, and how, there wasn't one conversation about politics, or it was just an equalizer, in terms of people all there displaced from this disaster. And that common story that people had. And this one woman went to the ATM and just emptied out her bank account and started giving out $100 bills. Like, all she had was, she was just like, we're all in this together. And, this is what I've got, and I want to just share it with, because we've only got us. And so whether you think about those kind of situations, we think about COVID as a unifier, because people had, again, the same story. And so this is when you see the rise of mutual aid. You start to see that people started to understand that there, as a word of the indigenous Australian woman who said, if you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you come because your destiny is bound with mine, then let's work together. Like, that's those storytellers. People can see themselves in stories. They can see, whether they see themselves or whether they just feel compassion just from someone else's experience. That I think that storytelling is one of the most powerful motivators. And like I said, the Dear Montefiore Puma, that was the story. That was a story that she was telling to her son, but then for us all to hear. So I do think that that's one of our most powerful tools and forums for unifying. Yeah, in the story.
Beautiful. I think we all agree we need much more connection.
Yeah.
And you never really end. There's never an end to that. You can never connect with too many.
Yes.
And I think the world needs a lot more of that. And you're right. Everybody, there is a connection in everyone's story. We may not think it, but if you don't even give yourself the chance to hear the story or to listen for a few minutes of someone else's reality, how can we find any common ground? Jackie, it's an honor. It's an honor for us to honor you. If any of you are listening and you haven't gotten your tickets yet for Thursday to join us at our now 10th annual Children's Environmental Health Day and 20th annual Child Health Advocate Award celebration in Chevy Chase, Maryland, we'd welcome you. It's going to be a great time. But again, it's important for us to take a moment to have some joy, to celebrate the successes of all shapes and forms, so that we can all solidify ourselves for the movement ahead the next day, which no doubt the fights will be there. But it is a beautiful thing to do it together. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
All your work.
Yeah.
Thank you.